The Pedestrian by Ray Bradbury. We have been recommended to check this out as apparently it is being assigned a ton in schools. And wow, I understand why now.
Let's go on a long walk into dystopia.
Welcome to the CodeX Cantina, where I am Una.
And I am going to take the bus crypto.
If you are new to the CodeX Cantina, we go heavy into detail in the stories that we read, bringing out some of the themes and hidden interpretations. If you are down for discussions like that, please consider hitting the subscribe button.
The Pedestrian is a science fiction short story by American writer Ray Bradbury. The story was originally published in the August 7th, 1951 issue of The Reporter. It is included in the collection The Golden Apples of the Sun.
Now, Ray Bradbury was a speculative fiction sci-fi writer, and his inspiration for this is quoted as coming from when he was in Los Angeles and walking along with a friend in 1949. And on their walk, a police cruiser pulled up and asked them what they were doing. Bradbury remarked, putting one foot in front of the other. And I guess that did not go over so well with the police officer, and that kind of inspired this story.
Hey, I'm walking here.
Okay, so for plot, in a television-obsessed society, Leonard Mead does the impossible. He goes for a walk. He's alone, and sidewalks are reclaimed by nature as everyone stays at home with their viewing screens. He's stopped by a robotic voice coming from a police vehicle. He's asked about his intent and purpose for being out, but they don't satisfy the last police vehicle in the city of 3 million people. He enters the vehicle where he learns there is no one else manning the ship there, and the vehicle believes he's a candidate for the Psychiatric Center for Research and Regressive Tendencies. The vehicle takes him off, but passes his home. End plot.
Ooh, spooky.
All right, so when I looked at this, it seems like there's several reasons for why a lot of people like to look at this right now. This is a very topical story right now that has a lot of different things that we can branch off into. Therefore, we can't cover everything, but let's talk about maybe some of the more popular ways of analyzing this story, right? So the opening lines, to enter out into that silence that was the city at 8 o'clock of a misty evening in November. That was what Mr. Leonard Mead most dearly loved to do. So this is a great piece to start talking about freedom. It very clearly, unapologetically, in the opening part here, talks about what he loves to do is to just walk. That's his jam, okay? And that's just what he likes to do, right?
Yeah. This is what he prefers and enjoys compared to what everybody else has been kind of doped into of enjoying television.
It's the intersection of legal and lawful, but in this universe, it's strange, right? Because we have some quotes where he was alone in the world of AD 2053, or as good as alone, because he's not alone, right? It says that the city has 3 million people later on, so he's not technically alone, but I think you're meant to, in a figurative language perspective, make that he's doing something different from what everyone else is doing. And we have lots of other figurative language in this story that kind of reinforces that, where as he's walking, it'll say, it is not unequal to walking through a graveyard, where only the faintest glimmers of firefly light appeared in flickers behind the windows. So why would they be comparing him walking through a graveyard right now? The tombs ill-lit by television light. So we're starting to get a glimmer into what are these people doing in their home that makes Leonard seem alone. And they're distracted, obsessed to stay at home and watch these viewing screens, television screens, right? This is the 50s, right? You can't help but assume Ray Bradbury is throwing a little punch at TV screens because that's taking away short stories, right? People stopped reading short stories and started watching TV, and he's kind of taking a little punch at it that these people are dead, they're lifeless. It's not as exciting as, hey, look at me, I'm writing a short story. My name's Ray Bradbury, right?
Yeah, you can definitely see that he's trying to take a punch at technology, I think, as a whole, that it is limiting people and that it is kind of sapping their life away and that they're glued to these televisions, and that when you watch TV, you turn off all the lights and you just have this little dim glow that maybe can be seen through the curtains or the cracks of doors. And it's very, very ominous, a feeling that it's giving off. And I think Ray Bradbury does a great job here of taking that swing at technology, that it does something negative to you. It can be positive, but he's pointing out the negatives if you become obsessed with it.
Right. So is everyone just watching their favorite show? Is that what's going on? Well, we have this quote, he stumbled over a particularly uneven section of sidewalk The cement was vanishing under flowers and grass. So this is kind of showing you as a reader, nobody walks outside. This is what Leonard loves to do, but nobody else does it because they're all sucked into this TV viewing screen culture at home. It's kind of, here's Leonard and what he loves. Everybody else loves watching TV. They're at ends with what their desires are in a sense. So the social norm in this universe that Ray's created is staying at home and watching TV. It's still legal and lawful to walk outside in theory, right? Just kind of like it was legal and lawful for Ray Bradbury to be walking down the street when he was pestered by a cop because the cop didn't like what he was doing. And that's what we're about to see in this story, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he's going against the norm. And I think this is kind of a cautionary tale of like today where so long ago it was normal to say go to a bar to try to get a date or something, and chatting online was seemed creepy, or you had a internet girlfriend or boyfriend, and now the reverse is true. And it's become the norm that you date on Tinder or you date on an app or you go online to find dates, and going to a bar is like, you met in a bar? That's weird. And the roles have reversed just like they have in this story.
So as he's passing by the TV, I'm going to point out there's a couple of interesting things on the TV. It says that there's some talks about the cavalry, so a war. And then they're also talking about a dozen assorted murders. Now that seems directly in contrast with the next part of the story, where they talk about how there are 3 million people in the city and there's no longer a need for police. They defunded the police because the money was better served elsewhere, right? The cops don't need to be there to stop lawbreakers. That's literally what's happening in the story, but yet on TV, they're romanticizing or fantasizing that these wars or dangers still exist for some reason. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy here how he is nailing it almost exactly what's happening today in our society with police issues and with society thinking of where do we need to fund what with, military spending and healthcare and helping people out. He does a great job of predicting the future. It's kind of scary. There's a good cautionary tale that we should definitely reading, and I can see why this is becoming so popular for young people to have to read.
Okay, so everyone's becoming antisocial, and I guess I have to ask the question, are we automating the police in this story?
Yeah, I think so. I think that Bradbury is trying to say that technology is supposed to bring us together, but it actually is the means of which we become antisocial with each other, as we don't need police officers. We don't need to interact with one another. All we need is our technology. We sit in our home in our little bubbles and interact with our TVs, and that is going to be enough for you.
I also wonder, too, can this police officer appropriately interpret the law without empathy, without human reaction, right? Have you heard about First Amendment audits?
Yeah, this is kind of scary that you could think that just because you're doing something that is anti-normal, that it could be infringing upon your First Amendment rights because the robots are automatronic and they don't have the interpretation that a human might, and that they're going to take away your First Amendment right if something is simply walking down the street.
Right. So you have freedom of passage, and in public, you're allowed to do that unless there's exigency reasons, for example, right? And you can go on YouTube and you can search First Amendment audits, and there are people that'll do strange things, like take pictures of a jail. Like, that seems suspicious. The police officers can come out and ask you what you're doing, but they can't stop you. It's a legal and lawful activity that can't be prevented from the United States perspective. And that's exactly what Ray Bradbury experienced walking down the street when he was stopped and, in a sense, harassed by a police officer. It seems incredibly relevant today, where here's Leonard Mead. This is what he loves to do, getting fresh air and walk out. But it's strange in this universe. So can a police officer really interpret that in an electronic format, right? An automated script doing something abnormal, take him into the regressive tendencies, hospital. It's kind of interesting the way Bradbury has always been anti, or at least leery of technology, and the way that it takes from humanity. And I think that ties to your exact point, where the more reliant you become on technology, I think what Bradbury's argument here with these TVs and these robotic police officers is that it takes away some of the humanity too, the more you give to these electronic resources.
I think that brings us to two really good questions that we can bring up here. And for first, to stay on topic with your robots here and feelings is, are the robots more like drones, and that there's some guy back at the police headquarters that's controlling it, and that is, it's a camera and he's able to speak through his microphone or his, whatever phone at this place. He's able to speak through his microphone at the station and then actually be able to, talk to the citizens out there because there's nobody out and about. They only need one car and the guy actually doesn't even be in the car.
Well, I don't know if it matters because that person's interaction is now with technology in the same way that people at home on their viewing screen are experiencing the news and these TV shows through technology. And I think that's kind of maybe where Bradbury is going with this, is that you are giving up some of your empathy, up some of your humanity, the more you do that.
Oh, exactly. And I think that without somebody manning the robot, it leads us to our second question is, why is he being profiled this way? And I think one of the biggest things is we don't know this man's race. We don't know really much about him at all, except that he's going against a norm of society, and that deems him to be suspicious. Those are some other really good questions that I think are very relevant today in 2020.
Right. There's clearly no indications in the story or reason to assume it's because of that. But at the same time, what makes you different? Whether it's your activity like Leonard Mead and doing something that you shouldn't, or if you feel like, hey, here's someone who looks different from the people that I know and understand, like maybe that's profiling, right? In the same way that Mead is being profiled of, you don't act the same way as everyone else. There's something wrong with you. We're going to take you to their regressive tendencies. And that's a very hot topic today.
Yeah. And I think too, is that he's acting different. And that's something that leads, a police officer, a robotic police officer, either or, to, start judging somebody immediately. But as human creatures, and I tell my students this all the time, we judge each other initially on what we look like, the way that we're dressed, the way that we carry ourselves. Those are animalistic bases that are in us, and we do that without even thinking about it. And if a robot can't do that, why was it programmed to do that?
So we've got civil discussions in this. We've got figurative language and exaggeration of death, the concept of being different and profiling someone for being different in the story, in a 2-page story. I can clearly see why this has become a hot topic to be assigned to students to talk about these issues without kind of hitting the hot buttons that parents will be all over teachers for some time, especially for a story from 1950, pre-civil rights. I think this is a very well written to talk to those things without directly being about those things, if that makes sense. It brings out the prejudices and issues and problems technology and assumptions make on us as people. So I do appreciate this story a lot. Now I'll say, if you've enjoyed today's conversation, please consider hitting that subscribe button or enter a police emoji or car emoji down below if you're to help us out. Now, Crypto, what are you going to give this story in terms of ratings?
Oh, solid 9 all around, both for pleasure and analytical. There's just so much here to digest. If I gave this to a class, it's going to allow them to talk about so many different topics. And what you pull out of the story, I think, is going to say a lot about you and what's important to you as well, as we've seen with so many other stories that draw out your own character. This story is going to do that in just 2 pages. I mean, you could give this in a 45-minute class to students, have them read it, get in groups of 3 and 4, and have some very deep, meaningful discussions. And I think that is incredible to be able to do in such a short story and such an old story that's such a cautionary tale for 2020.
Great story. Great story. I'll go with an 8.5. Highly enjoyed. Agreed with everything you just said. So with that said, guys, we appreciate you spending some time to talk about The Pedestrian by Ray Bradbury today. If you guys would like to join us on the literature discussion, please consider hitting that subscribe button as we post videos 2 to 3 times a week. Una out.
Peace.